Wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Well, hello, good morning, and welcome back. It is week five, the fifth and final week on the 2001 EVA Pod, and we're going to finish this up. We got a little bit of painting to do, and decals on the outside, and the final buttoning up and final wiring, but that's not going to take, all of the week. I did work a little bit over the weekend, this weekend just passed, on getting the base idea nailed down and getting that started. So I'm going to show you that. I'll probably cut it in right about here. Hi, welcome back. Well, not welcome back. Welcome. It's Sunday. I'm doing a little bit of early work this week on the pod and working on the base. And a lot of well-meaning folks have asked me, why don't you do the hotel room floor as your base? Set it in there, do the, light it up, make it look neat. Well, there's one reason why I won't do that, because I've already done it. Not that you might not know, but I've already done it. This, let me show you. Hold on one second. Let me flip the camera around. Okay, here is the smaller pod model that I had done. That was the Captain Cardboard. This, until very recently, was the best version of this kit you could find. This is the Captain Cardboard version. And as you can see, well, me may not see, this was my, let's see if I can find it. Yes, my friends, that is a gold winner from Wonderfest in 2016, and it's one of the very few golds I ever won, so I'm very, very proud of that. But as you can tell, this one was already done with the lit floor, and this used Paul's wonderful panels inside, his backlit panels for the consoles and whatnot in it. The difference is this one has a Dave figure in it, whereas the new kit does not. But you can see there's panels and there's screens and all that lovely stuff. Well, I've also sat this down on the base and did a box, put some strip lighting in there, gave the impression of the floor panels. So the long and the short of it is I already did it. It's already been done. So I needed to come up with a different idea for this bigger pod, and let me show you what I came up with. While I was here anyway, I wanted to show off a little bit this old kit, because it doesn't get any love anymore. It's been supplanted. But here was a kit where the earmuff was put on with magnets so that you could show off all the wonderful work that was done inside. But this inside is wildly inaccurate compared to what has been produced since. But at the time, as I've said, it was the best on the market. So let me pop this back on. Oops. Let me get it right side up. That would help. There you go. Pop the magnets back on. And it has its own opening and closing door, but you have to do it by hand. So, on to the new pod. Okay, the long and the short of it is, this is the base that I'm going to try to emulate. I am not going to try to copy it exactly, because it's a base, and as long as it gives a flavor of the idea of what it is you're trying to make, you've succeeded. If I was going to build a diorama of the entire bay, then yeah, it would be more crucial to make that accurate. But as it is, I only need the basic shapes, and then I'll add my power switches to that. So that is basically this big turntable here, which has a waffle texture to it. That is the key selling point. So I was trying to figure out what I could do to emulate that. And I remember my trusty old, well, let me just show you what I've got. But while I'm here, I want to show you one more point. And this was from another picture of reference that I found. That's not it. That's not it. This is it. If you'll notice carefully, you can see that these guys here do have a a silver highlight around them. The small ones do, the large ones do. So that's where I'm getting my reference for painting the painting that silver on there. And you'll also notice that the white paint does not go down into the spaces between those ribs. So don't worry about trying to get your white paint down in there. If you get a nice crisp line here with black, that's all you need to worry about. I don't see any black and any silver highlights inside, any silver highlights inside there, so I wouldn't worry about that. But here you can see on both of them, this is probably, it catches the light a little bit better. But you can see that that is clearly a metallic ring, top and bottom. So now back to our regularly scheduled program. For many of you who have watched me through the long and many years of making videos, you might recognize this little friend of mine. This is a cheap, it's not cheap, I won't call it cheap, but it is an inexpensive Lazy Susan that was actually part of a two-layer or two-level thing for, I don't know whether it was for cake decorating or what. But I got it at Walmart in the kitchen section, and it was it's done its purpose. I've used it many years for painting. You paint something on it, and you can spin it around and keep, especially if you're airbrushing, and you can paint very well on it. Well, its time has finally come. I've decided to use this as the basis for my turntable base for the pod. So I had to go out to Walmart to make sure you couldn't get a brand new one like this, and you can't. They apparently don't make them anymore. This is such a nice, slim, skinny design that I'm going to use this, but I went and bought a replacement for it so that I can use that replacement for painting in the future. So I had step one. I had the turntable. Step two is, how do I make that waffle pattern for the top of it? And I'll scratch my head and I think, well, you know, I was this close to trying to scratch build some sort of, you know, waffle pattern. But for the life of me, I was seeing that pattern in my head, and I knew that I had seen that somewhere already made before, and it finally dawned on me. And this is what it is. There you go. It's plastic gridding, and it's made to go in fluorescent fixtures. So I went to Lowe's. This is the kind of stuff that goes up into the fluorescent fixture into the casing. So that is, I picked up a piece of this, and it's 2 foot by 4 foot. I've already cut the chunk off of it, but cheap, already done, and a nice sized grid. You know, maybe not perfect, but like I said, all I needed to do is to give me the impression of what it is I am trying to shoot for and not be exact. Back to the base here, I cut a piece of this out, I trimmed it down, and it fits perfectly inside this lip. Now what I'm going to do to finish it off after it's glued down is I am going to put a finishing edge around it this way, and I'm going to wrap it this way to kind of square off that edge to get around that problem. So before I committed myself to doing all this, I wanted to get it on video so that when you saw it tomorrow all nicely painted black, you wouldn't be surprised where it came from. Okay, one coat of basic black over it, and I'm going to let that dry. And now I need to work on the bits that I'm going to use to wrap it and clean up that edge. Here's just a scrap piece to show you what it looks like. I mean, that's pretty good thick styrene there. And it's just the right height to level off. It was beautiful. It's like it was made for it. But I don't know how much more I'm going to get done today. I wanted really just to find the materials and test it out today to make sure it was going to work. So I think I need to start mapping out the bigger parts of it. There's going to be a front wedge here that's going to simulate what the rest of that little tongue pad looks like. And then I'm going to be able to box under that to hold the switches, which I did pick up yesterday. And they're the nice old-fashioned 60s looking red light switch, rocker switch. So you know, you put a bank of those in a row, and they kind of look semi-discovery-ish. So there you go. Well, I'm back. Hey, and wasn't that a neat? I was very happy to have solved that little bit of mental gymnastic to try to figure out the best way to do that, represent that base. So And now we're going to do some final painting this morning, so let's get down to the workbench. And here's the last big bits that need painting. I need to clean up the edges on all of these black shapes. And then once that's done, I can pop the circular bits in from underneath and get this ready for a gloss coat for some decals. Because it has some little warty decals. I still have these guys masked, and I still have the ILs masked. So let's get to it. Okay, masking these guys can be kind of tricky, but I think I've got it figured out. First you take the piece that looks like this. Well, here's the negative of it on the sheet. And you wrap it around that edge. I had cut some little darts in it, and I'll probably include those. Well, not probably. I will include those in the final file. To cut some little stress releasers right there. And then you use this shape right here to go, and I'm going to put the camera down. Hold on one second. Okay, as I said, you take this shape here and you lay it around this area, because the hardest area to keep white is going to be the area right here between this black circle and this black shape here. Is a little strip of white, so keeping that masked is the important deal right there. Okay, the next step is to take a set of these weird shapes here, and using the important thing is this little corner, and you want to wrap it around that corner here and then fold it back on both sides. But what you're creating there is the mask for just the corner. Make sure you kind of poke it into that corner or that crease as much as possible. I found some great paintbrushes that have this kind of an end to them, which makes them a wonderful tool just for pushing vinyl into the creases like that. And these were cheap Michaels brushes. The brush part of it is probably the least important aspect of it, but that's a really good tool for laying down vinyl and working it into corners and stuff. And then the only thing that's left is just a couple of straight run pieces to do both sides. And what I'm doing is including long strips that you can just cut to the right length. Okay, it took a little bit of doing, but I have got these guys masked off and I'm ready to paint the black. And you know, I could have waited till now to paint this at all, but I did a quick coat while I was painting these, and you know, no harm, no foul. It just means that when I paint the perimeters here, I don't have to put as much paint on, and anytime you can minimize the amount of paint you're putting on over masks, or especially around this white, the less chance you have to worry about overspray. So now the thing to do is basically cover everything so that I can start spraying the black. Okay, these have all been taped up to within an inch of their lives, and we're ready to do the black painting on here. Alrighty, all of the black paint has been sprayed, and it's time to let this dry for a while. And there you go, all the masks are removed. And while it's true, there are still some little tiny touching up that needs to be done. It's still easier to do this and to make those tiny touches by hand than it is to try to paint the whole bloody thing by hand. So there you go. Okay, so I've kind of gotten sidetracked. I'm sorry, this is Tuesday, by the way. Kind of gotten sidetracked on building the base for the pod because it's crappy outside. It's cold, it's wet. There was threatening snow, and it's 1st of April, 2nd of April, and they're threatening snow. So don't feel like working on the pod today, only because I would like it to warm up like it's supposed to in the next few days so that I can give it a good clear coating for the decals. And since I don't think I'm in any danger of it not being finished this week, I wanted to go ahead instead and work on the base today. So I've made this little unit to go with. This is the back. This is the bottom back of the base. And I am making a little box here to put the 4 switches in and get those wired up. So that's what I'm doing today. And this is where I've come up with on the base. Now, of course, the bottom of it needs to be painted black, and I've got the switches just kind of sitting in the holes. But this is where I'm coming from. I want to make the turntable work, but only about halfway. I don't want to be able to turn it all the way around because that's just going to twist up the wires. So if I can make 180 degrees, and I'll put enough slack in the bottom so that you can make this 180 degree turn, as long as it's always going one direction, we'll be fine. I just need to put some stops in there so that the disc only turns 180 degrees one way. But that's where we're coming from. I think we're coming along. Again, it's a cold, wet, rainy day, so I don't feel like doing a lot of pod work. Okay, work is progressing slowly. Like I said, it's cold and wet and rainy outside, so I can't get a lot of painting done, but I can get some. And here's where we are on this base. This is facing backwards now, and I can get a full 180 rotation out of it and no more, because I've got a stop that keeps it from doing that, and that will hopefully keep the wires underneath from twisting up too badly. I'll just make sure I've got plenty of slack in there. And welcome back. It is Wednesday, and doing some last minute wire ending stuff before I can get on to finishing the pod. Sun is out today. It's a little smidge warmer. The winds have died down, so I think it's a good day to get back onto the pod. But before I do that, I need to finish wiring up the pod so that I can put it on the base. What I've got is the common ground wire, the common negative, and the 4 positives for the 4 circuits. And I'm going to attach each of those to a leg on these plugs so that I can simply plug the pod down onto the base right before I glue it, because keeping the pod clean and white and pristine before I am ready to nail it down to the base is paramount. So things to do would be, I've got the iron heating up, and I've got to put female plugs on this side and male plugs on the base, and then I can close up the base. Let me go get the base so you can see the base. Here's the base. Now, it's not quite glued together yet, but here's the look of it. This is the rotating Lazy Susan O Death, and these are going to be the 4 circuits, and those lights will come on as power goes out to the various circuits. But I thought having these nice lit switches on it would be very pod-esque. So here you can see, once I take the top of it off, the guts of the thing. The 4 switches. This is the common ground, and because we all need to find a common ground, and this is the common ground, and these are the 4 circuits. So I need to put the male plugs on these, female plugs on those, so that I can fish those up through here, and they can be, you know, sticking out of here, so that I can plug them in, push everything down, and then once I do that, it will give me enough slack that the wire that I can spin this halfway around and not get any binding. So it's coming down to pretty close. Hopefully I should be able to put another finish coat of black on this. But I'm waiting for the iron to heat up so that I can do the last bit of the wiring. And then it's going to be a question of, once I have the wiring stuck up through here, I can flip this whole thing over upside down and epoxy this surface to this surface. I can epoxy that down, is basically what I'm waiting to do. So there. Okay, so I've left the navigational thrusters, or the directional thrusters, out of the earmuffs to make it easier to paint around them, because this right here is notorious. This is the spot that you need to keep white. This right above here, between this, all of this black and all of this black. And it was just frankly easier to handle this and to paint it and do all that with those left out and paint it separately. Well, now is the time to install them. The last little touch-up bit of painting on these earmuffs was doing this red thing, which, wow, that was kind of interesting. Very light touches. A brush with 3 hairs and a very light touch is what that takes. I'm wondering if they couldn't have done that with a decal. But they're done on both of them, and now ready for some clear coating. I went and touched up some white here, even though all of this will be permanently glued to the base, so you will never see any of it. And you will actually, you probably have a hard time looking down and seeing this seam around here, but I still wanted to take care of it. So we're getting ready to put a clear coat on this to get ready for decals, and I believe I'm going to use the Vallejo gloss like I did on the inside, because I'm afraid of anything yellowing on this white paint. And I know those Krylon clears, as good as they are, they might have a tendency to yellow. So I don't want my pod turning yellow anytime soon. So the gloss varnish from Vallejo, which has a very white coat, well, look at it. It's very clean. It's milky white, but it's certainly not in any danger of turning yellow. So that's what we're going to use, and I'm only going to use that in spots where the decals go, so as to minimize the amount. And then I'll do the flat coat back over top of all that with the with the same Vallejo gloss, or the Vallejo flat coat. Okay, it has come to be time to spray a clear coat over these spots, particularly where the decals are going to go. Oh, and by the way, anybody else that wants to check this, I haven't opened up my other box to make sure, but this is the decal sheet. You know what the decal sheet, or the partially decal sheet, because I've used a ton of it. But I also was in my box, there was a secondary slip of a second set of the arm decals. These are the decals that go on the two arms, and along with the decal sheet, there was a secondary sheet of a repeat of those decals, and I went ahead and used those. So I'm going to go through here and see if there was any reason why. There wasn't any reason numerically. There was enough in the decal, in that secondary decal sheet, to do everything. So I'm curious as to why they bothered. Were they just expecting you to lose those ones and not the other ones? Because there are other decals I would really rather have gotten two sets of, other than this. But I'm wondering, I want to go through and see if there's maybe a typo or something on here, and that's why they did that. So getting back to this, I am getting ready to spray the clear on this, and to do that, I have cleaned this airbrush to within an inch of its life. If I could stick it in boiling water and boil it, I would. When you are spraying clear over white, you don't want the slightest bit of any remnant of old paint to come out of that airbrush and hit your white surface. So I spent an extra special long time cleaning, which is not something I like to do, cleaning my airbrush to minimize that as much as possible. And if I get a flake of paint, I'm gonna go crazy. But I've done my best. So let's put on some clear. Now, checking the mighty instruction sheet to see where the decals rest. They seem to pretty much rest. Well, there's one that goes over top of the ILs, one that goes right there. And then the rest of them seem to go around these 4 units here. So I'm not going to spray any of the rest of the earmuff, only where the decals need to go. Hopefully that will also minimize any problems. So there's also one that goes on right here on both sides of the red accents. So that'll get a coating as well. Well, you may not be able to tell it because, well, maybe you can if you look here carefully, but I've pulled out the main body of the pod, and I have put a similar coat of clear, and that is the gloss varnish from Vallejo, over the areas where the decals will go. And I'm going to set this up overnight, and then we're going to come back tomorrow, and we are going to do some decaling, my friends. We're going to do some decaling, and once we put the clear coat over the decals, Then it's just a question of putting the headlight covers in, putting the arms in, pegging those, and then putting the earmuffs on. Once all that's done, a final look-see around the whole deal, and then we're ready to nail it down to the base. So we could be, let's see, today's Wednesday. We can get this done by Friday, I'm sure, and not even have to rush. Well, good morning. It is Thursday, and we are this close to wrapping up the pod. Just a couple of big things to do, frankly, but we should be able to wrap this thing up pretty well. And now's the time. Everything is done. Everything is set except for the decals. And now is the time when, you know, some wiseacre sends me a reference and shows me that I've gotten something wrong. It happens. It doesn't usually happen. Well, I won't say it doesn't usually, because it's not. I'm struggling how to say this. I would have thought that out of all of the filmmakers in the world, that Stanley Kubrick, a man who is known for his meticulous attention to detail and will spend months, nay years, belaboring over a movie to make it, would have been more consistent in his set design, especially on these pods. Now, you can expect something like that to crop up if you are making a weekly TV series and you don't have time to, and you've got maybe several different effects houses working on something. Whereas, you know, one effects house might use this reference and somebody else uses another reference. Or a movie that's a lower budget. But not Stanley. Come on, Stan. There are some mistakes that I have made. Well, I won't call them mistakes, because there are some essential differences in the pods between the full-size sets and the models. And what are you going to do? I thought these would be minimized on this kit. So my lesson, my hubris, just when I think I know something, the more you know, the more you don't know. And you should just shut up and build the models. That is my new mantra. Shut up and build the model. If you have a reference picture that shows the sky is green, by God, paint the sky green and let somebody else tell you the sky was meant to be blue. Now this goes all the way back before the whole grid lines on the Enterprise and what color is the Millennium Falcon and blah, blah, blah. Everybody knows the main difference. This is the pod. Everybody, excuse me. Everybody knows there is one main difference, and that is the HAL eye on the, I believe it was the model, is different than the full-size set, where that was a silver tube with a camera lens in it, like a movie camera. And you can kind of expect that. You know about that, and you can kind of live with that, because you have that really great reference of where it zooms into HAL, and you see the HAL eye, because you need to know that HAL is watching what's going on, even in the pods. And that's not really clear from any of the interior displays and mechanisms and lights and whatnot. But you need to know that HAL, narratively, you need to know that HAL is following the action. So, the HAL eye on the front, you know about that. There are, and my friend Elliot, who has pointed out, the glass on the front window should be flat and not curved. Aesthetically, I like the curved better. It makes more sense when you're wrapping it around the interior, and it doesn't give you that odd windowsill business where the outside of the dome is curved, and you kind of want the window to follow that. So I can live with that. Is there a step pad on the back, right below the back door? Is there a pad that is a different color? Well, sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. The little doorknob, for lack of a better term, this gear-looking thing. Sometimes it's white, sometimes it's painted. Sometimes it's painted gray. Now, granted, the absolute worst film example of this in the worst film was Silent Running. There are scenes, even in the same scene, where the detail on the three drones changes. Within the same scene, knobs get knocked off or things get rearranged. There was a scene, again, this goes back to television, but it goes to effects houses. There is a scene in an episode of the new Battlestar Galactica where Starbuck has this brand new Viper. She's just come back from her vision. And she's got a brand new, pristine, white, crisp, clean Viper that changes numbers in the same scene. It's like it's sitting there on set, and I think that means they're going from the physical set or the physical prop to a CG representation or something. But as she walks in front of it, the tail number changes from one to the other. So things like that I'm kind of used to happening, but not with Stanley, not with Mr. Kubrick, not with the maestro. So here's my lesson. Pick a reference you like and stick with it, because it might change. I was so proud about knowing the orientation of those two round instrument clusters above on the inside, and you know, it was 6/3 and 3/3. Well, there's a reference that shows that it was upside. It was the other way as well. So the more you know, the more you don't know. So I am going to pretend I didn't see any of that. No, I'm not. I'm going to take it to heart, because the fact that people are this passionate about it is a good thing. Would that we had people taking that much care with other aspects of our lives. But we're getting down to, back to the business at hand. We're getting down to finishing this, and I'm going to put some decals down on this ship, and I am going to then go roll up in a big ball and cry, because I thought I knew what I knew, and you never know what you know. And you never know what you don't know. So, you know, you never know. Back to the model. Okay, here we are, kids. We are, overnight, the clear coat has dried, and I am ready to put decals down. And I think what I'm going to do is put as many decals down as possible, and then I'm going to run out and pick up the satin finish from the Vallejo. I picked up the gloss and the matte the first time, but there's a satin finish that they also make that I think I'm going to use for my overall finish. So I need to get a bottle of that. So let's put some decals down and then take it from there. Okay, I believe the method of attack I'm going to use is to do the back, and then and then take that away, and while it is drying, do the two earmuffs, and then take those away, and while they're drying, bring this back in and spin it around and do the front. So let's get going. Okay, the first of the decals are down on the back, and this guy right here is the only one that needs help, because everybody else has an edge that they can line up against. These square ones line up against this scribed edge in the door. Of course, the bottom ones line up with the corners and the bottom edge of this raised detail. But this guy here is the only one that needs any careful eyeballing. And then getting this guy centered and level, and basically you just level it between here, and you kind of balance it on a toothpick and see whether or not it's straight or not. Went back to screen grabs to get the placement on that, because I believe the instructions call for it to be a little higher. They want the you see there how they want the last bottom line to be centered on that bolt, and the screen grab that I've got shows that the text pretty much is centered on the bolts, and that this line here is a little bit lower than that. So that's the one I'm going with. Like I said, you can find pretty much references that'll back up any claim you want to make. So pick one that you like and stick with it. Okay, I've got the remaining decals put on the back. And it's refreshing after all of those Galactica builds where every square inch seems to be covered with no step decals to actually get one that says, hey, step. Here's a step here. And I guess there's been some controversy as to whether this decal, whether these word step should have been in black or should be in red. My new attitude is, hey, it's a red decal, I'm going to put it on there. I don't care. And I don't know what a vern is, but apparently they need 2 thrusters for them. I don't know whether that's supposed to be vert, like a vertical thruster, or what. Or if it was a ventral thruster, it would be I don't know what the vern is, and I don't care. Well, I do care, but I'm going to stop worrying about this little stuff. So that pretty much finishes up the decals on the back. So let's remove the pod and do the earmuff decals, and then we will come back and do the front. One little thing I forgot to mention, and that was, unless you haven't been following along, these black shapes here, 1, 2, 3, and this one down here, I painted those on. That's why the decals for those will go unused, unloved, and unsung, because I'm not using them or loving them or singing them. They are superfluous. I prefer paint whenever possible. Okay, so I've got the tiny text on the earmuffs, and it's kind of a split the difference type of thing. Do you put it on knowing that it is going to be sitting like this? Do you put it on level to that so that it's readable that way? Or do you put it, here's a better example, do you put it so that it follows the line of the top of the opening and parallel to this? Or do you slightly skew it so that it would be flat if you were reading it straight on? I opted to go with parallel on the parallel to the hull line there, but on these ones it's completely up in the air. It's like some of them are straight, some of them are 90 degrees to that. I think that's a good standard to follow, rather than just putting them on all akimbo. Try to make them all as straight as possible. Looks like I didn't do a really good job on that one, but 7 out of 8 ain't bad. So let's put these aside now and go back and fetch the front of the pod and do those ones. This is going very quickly. Okay, here is that very excellent reference picture I was referring to earlier, where you can see just the perfect placement of all these tiny decals and these little reddish stripes and black stripes that go around the various clusters there. And that's the one I'm going to use as my reference, even though it is different than the full-size set, because the full-size set has that. Well, let me see if I can find a picture of that to show you. Well, and here you go. Here is that picture. Here's the full-size set, and you can see the detail around the howl eyeball is completely different. This looks like a smaller metal tube with a much smaller lens in there. And you see the tiny text indicated, but you don't see any of the red or black stripe detail that goes around any of these inverted cones. So you can tell that that was detailed particularly only for that insert shot of Hal catching on to what was going on. But this helps you for some of the decal placement that goes up and around various areas here particularly around the arms. All right, it was tiny, it was tedious, it was not all that difficult though, really, getting all of these tiny decals in. Going back and forth between the model and the reference picture on the computer, I can see differences in the model structurally, detailedly, and all that kind of stuff, so I just did my best. It's not very clear on the instructions. It has like a general area for the decals to go in, but not a specific, clock position. If you are going to make this a clock and you say that decal starts at noon and goes over to 9, or it's in that arc there. So I went back to that reference picture and tried to approximate it as best as I could. Now here I want you to notice something it's why I spray gray primer on things. By spraying a gray primer on this, when I put the white top coats on it, I still get this pre-shading, these recesses. If I had done white over the white plastic with a white primer and then a white top coat, all of this would have been gone. It just would have been white, and you would see a little bit of shadow line like you're seeing there. But by spraying them gray first, just misting the white over top of it, you get depth there that isn't, it's a little bit more accentuated. The depth looks better. The rest of it would end up looking a lot like this if you didn't spray it. So that's why I do the things I do. I've got 2 slight decals left. They are the ones that go right here. and I need to put the earmuffs on so that I can position those most properly. So what I need to do is let all this dry and set in for a while, and I'll probably we'll go get some lunch. And I am back from lunch, but now I feel compelled, nay, demanded that I go outside and do some yard work because it's so beautiful out. But I wanted you to catch up on the latest. Before I left, I epoxied the turntable to the base, and there is the one extreme, and there's the other extreme. It is got this little stopping screw in here to keep it from going too far, but I can spin it and turn it and it stays in one place, so that's great. Now all I need to do is some tiny detail work on this to finish it up, and it will be done. I am debating how much greebly I want to put on it because, like I said, base should give an indication, but it shouldn't be too overwhelming. I think what I might want to do, what I was planning on doing for the switches, is I'm going to cut some vinyl white pinstriping around here to look like the control surface inside the pod, and I'm thinking I might want to do some rectangles out here just to be fun, but that's it. Okay, you can barely tell, but I have put a coat of, and this is my replacement Lazy Susan, so much smoother. Oh, it's beauty. And yes, this is where I was test fitting the grill, but which I think I'm going to leave in there because I kind of like. But you can barely tell, but I have put a clear coat of the satin this year, the satin varnish. The satin. Put a satin coat on there to see how that's going to dry in, and it looks better over the black than it does the white. But I'm going to let that dry and see what a good job it does at knocking the carrier film down around those decals. And I think I'm going to go outside and do some yard work. Okay, I'm back from spending a couple of hours in the yard, and even if the neighbors can't see it because it's all in the backyard, I feel better for having done it. But I'm come back and I look at this, and it's either going to have to take multiple more coats, or I'm going to have to switch to the gloss because I'm not seeing any great difference in the satin than I did using the flat. So I mean, I shook it up real well. Maybe I watered it down too much. Maybe that was the problem. But I think what I need to do is give it a couple more coats before I write it off completely. But the satin, well, I'm seeing a little bit of shine there. I guess that's working a bit, but I would have liked it to have a little bit more shine to it than that. Okay, I am slowly building up coats here. I did a 50-50 mix of gloss and satin because I wasn't getting enough glossiness out of this. So we're going to see how well that goes. If I have to do a light coat of a full gloss, I will do that, but I'd rather not. I'd rather have somewhere in between satin and gloss. So that's what you have to learn for yourselves when you're trying to work with something, a product you hadn't worked with before. So we're going to let it dry and we'll come back to it. But here we are into Thursday evening. Still easily can finish this tomorrow. I only need to attach the arms and the earmuffs and then nail it down to the base, which is cooking in the other room, and we'll be done. Okay, I just glued the arms in, and by that I mean I pushed them in the slot and glued the pin in. The arms, of course, are not and ever will be unglued so that they can go in and out like that. I'm ready to put the earmuffs on, which is the last bit of construction, major construction. I still need to put these, put the headlight covers on, but I'm going to wait until I've put the last clear coats over everything, and I take the mask off of the front window, and then I'll put the headlight covers on. But I want to put the earmuffs on, and before I do that, I think what I'd like to do is to hook everything up to the base, not glue it down, but hook it up to make sure everything is working before I irrevocably lose access here. Well, this is a rousing success. It is down on the base, it's not glued. All of the switches are lit. They all miraculously still work inside, and I will turn them off one by one and you will get the joy of seeing them come on. First button is all of the controls. Controls, and if I spin this around, the HAL light in front is lit. Second one is the red interior lights. I'm going to turn off the controls so that you can see that, but that is the interior red lighting. That includes all of the lights on the two back bunks and the three on the ceiling. Adding to that, the third switch, which are the front monitors. And let me zoom in on those. Open up that door the whole way. There you go. There's your switch. There's your monitors. We turn the front controls on. And then the last one is the headlights, which are still covered up by the yellow masks at this point, which is why they look yellow. So now that I know that all of that works, plus I know the turntable does what it's supposed to do, because this is supposed to allow it to do one full turn, one 180 degree turn. I can either have it facing backwards like this or facing forward like that. So now that I know that all works, I can go ahead and put the earmuffs on. Okay, the earmuffs are on. They're not glued, but they're pressed in place, and this is where we're going to leave it for the evening. We're dang close to being done. I have a couple of details to put on the base. That's pretty much it. I need to decide the best way to permanently glue these. They're just press fit on right now, even though they're on very tight. I have to decide whether that's going to be good enough or whether I need to lay a drop of a liquid adhesive down that seam. If I do, I'll have to make sure it's clean, clean glue on a clean brush so that it doesn't mess up smear any white paint on the way. Two more Dunny decals to put on right there. I was waiting to put the earmuffs on so that I could properly place them. They are these ones right here. So we'll let it sit tonight and come back in the morning. I went over the whole thing with a gloss only because I don't think that is giving me quite the finish that I want. So like I said, I glossed everything, and if I don't like it in the morning, I can either put more gloss on it if it's not glossed enough, or put some satin over it to knock it down a little bit. But that's a good portion of where we are going to be. Oh, look at that, sitting there so beautifully. So beautifully. Good night for now. We'll see you in the morning. Welcome back. It is Friday. It is the final work day of the week, and I think it's also going to be the final work day on this pod project. I've got one more sacred duty, and that is to attach the side earmuffs permanently. So I'm going to get a little bit of glue out and do that. And then I'm going to dress up the base a little bit, and then I'm going to break a bottle of champagne over it because this puppy is finished. So let's get on with that, and we'll see what kind of trouble we can get into today. I'm going to try to find some sort of chamois or other cloth to see if I can buff up the finish on this a little bit. I've gone over it a couple times with a gloss, and the gloss looks fine in the black areas, but I'm not wild about how it looks on the white areas, so I don't want to build up too much of it. So I'm wondering if a little buffing would help. But here we open the door, and I'm happy to report the door is not rubbing on anything. That's the tricky decal I was worried about. The door is not making contact with anything. If anything, it's rattling. It's a little loose, but I can live with that. I need to dress this edge up because the level of spray that I've been putting on all of this, I've not been spraying this as fully. So what I need to do is like stuff something in behind here so I don't end up getting any overspraying inside. but I need to mask that off and hit it with the clear coat a couple times to kind of bring it up to the same level as the rest of it. But let's get these earmuffs on. Okay, the earmuffs are on. In the process, I broke every single pin off of that left earmuff trying to get it lined up. So that means I've got an ugly seam here that I'm going to have to repaint. So it's some careful masking and some white paint, but it's going to get done. Didn't go on as smoothly as this one did, but you know, 1 out of 2. I guess you got to live with those odds. So I'm going to do some detail work on the base, and I've got this one last decal to go on either side right about there, but I want the earmuffs to dry for a good long time before I touch them again. Well, it took seemingly forever, but I've got the base done up the way I want it to. The details on the back and these guys up front, I just think it helps it. Not meant to completely replicate exactly every little detail, but just to give an idea, give the impression. That's what I'm all about. So I've got one last set of decals, ones that go here on both sides. I'm going to put those on. I'm going to take my little fine hand brush and touch up a couple spots of white paint that need to be touched up, and then I'm going to say it is done. Oh no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I'm going to touch up that white paint, and then I'm going to remove these covers, and using the white canopy glue, I'm going to glue in those 4 covers, take this mask off, and then I will be done. So let's get these decals. Now we're down to the tiniest of tiny punch lists here. I have glued in the coverings over these headlights, and I used microcrystal clear to do it. I was going to use the canopy glue, but this is frankly too runny. I need something with a little bit more bite to it, a little bit more body to it. So I used the crystal clear. Now I am trusting that it will in fact dry clear, like the name says. I did it varying degrees of neatness on these because it's not something that I'm all that comfortable or familiar with using, but I am hoping and praying that it will dry in clear. So what is left? We are down to, let's peel this off. We're getting ready to open this up. Then the last thing to do will be to somehow, well, I know exactly how I'm going to do it, but to glue the base, or glue the bottom of the ship down to the base. So let's do the big unveiling here. I feel like I need to have the I mean, if you're going to have the unveiling music, that's the spot to have it. Okay, don't look at that. It looks ugly as hell, but what it is this accumulation of dust on the inside. So all I need to do is take a long paintbrush and clean it off from the inside. I'm going to do that before I light it up. And there you go, ladies and gents. I've got that window cleaned. Took a little bit of the plastic cleaner, the little minor scratch filler type of stuff. It really buffed it up as well as I could reach in there. But there you go. The headlights are lit. I've got the covers on. I've got the window cleaned off. You can see inside. Importantly, you can see the working screens inside. That was the goal. You can see the, let me turn these headlights off because it does make it distracting. You can see the door lit up, which is a first because of the everything that was been going on in behind there. It made it tough, or having that mask on there. The door is either open, in which case you can't see it, or it's closed, in which case you can't get a camera near it. But there you go. Console's lit. The big honking thing I hate the most is how those side monitors turned out. I just am not wild about the decals provided. Paul is going to be making new backlit films to go in there, and that will make it eminently worth redoing just to get those. But you see the, okay, now let me turn this around. Just turned around. Let me zoom back out. Turned around. The door opens like a dream. Push that back in there. And you can kind of look inside to see what the deal is. But there's a better view at those monitors. All of the, well, let me see, I'll walk you through them. I'll turn off the monitors. I'll turn off the red lights and turn off the control lights. Now, I just want to turn the red lights on for a minute so that you can see how well those panels work. And again, you don't see the bulbs because of the angle. Let me go ahead and turn all the buttons back on. You can see I got the lights in those circles. I've got, even though those are very tight up against the wall, there are enough spill to take care of them. Again, those side monitors are blown out and I don't like them. There you go. Oops, let me get back out. And like I said, you can, oops, I think I'm running into a difficulty here. I want to limit the amount of backing and rotating I do on this, but it does seem to be working. It's making me rethink whether or not I actually want to glue this down to the base. Because if I need to get in there and unplug it, I can do that. I think that may be smart. I think what I'm going to do is not glue it down to the base, because it will be even easier to transport if I can pull it off of the base. I've got those plugs in there. I can unplug the plugs and control it that way. And if, God forbid, I need to get into anything, it would be a lot easier if that was not glued down to the base. So yeah, we're not going to glue it down. I may put just maybe one or two little felt pads between the ship and the grid, just to keep the paint from scuffing each other. That may be something I do to kind of protect that. But other than that, I think we're done. So got the last decals on the side. But there you go. It is the Mobius EVA Pod. And that brings us to the end. The end, my friends, of this very fun, at points very exasperating, but ultimately very satisfying build of the Mobius 2001 EVA Pod. Mark 1. You know, because I always say I'm going to get back and rebuild these things. Learned a lot of lessons. Learned a lot of things I would do differently. Can't wait to try it again. But yeah, it's this point I always get kind of, mountain of melancholy is the word, but I get kind of wistful after finishing a project, especially one. This is 5 weeks now. And I don't know where I'm going to go next. I'm going to take the weekend off and just kind of go, what do I feel like building? Because it's that time of year again, kids. It's Wonderfest. Wonderfest is the end of May, 1st of June. And here we are, first full week in April. So I've got all of April to play. I've got May to buckle down and get ready as far as pulling out things that I'm going to take, dust them off, and see what needs to get repaired, what needs to get touched up paint-wise, what's ready for prime time and what isn't, frankly. So I got to look at something that I could probably finish in about 3 weeks. So I don't know exactly what that's going to be. I've got one idea in mind, but I'm not sure. That's where I'm at right now. So not to belittle, I feel like I'm cheating because I'm already talking about the next project. I just finished this. I mean, and I'm already talking about the next thing. It's the fickle finger of model building. But I'm going to sit back and look at this over the weekend. I'm petting it fondly over here on the table. Looking at it over the weekend, seeing if there's anything I want to touch up on it ever so much. But this model was a long time coming. And, you know, people have been asking for a kit of this thing for years. And I can't think of a better job that they could have done. I mean, it's the perfect size. It's nice enough that you can put the full interior in it and light it up. Anything smaller would have been a tease. Anything larger would have been overkill, I think. Refer back to the older videos as far as, you know, problems I've had with individual parts on this. I still am of two minds about whether or not doing the side panels in white rather than clear was the best way to go. Those decals, those bloody decals. I really wish, Mobius, if you're listening, find those emails. No, Mobius, if you're listening, please consider putting out a supplemental decal sheet that is only the white lines and the tiny text and not any of the black that goes with it on those consoles, so that we can just use those bits where you want to. And please open up the holes in the carrier film just a smidge to make them go around the buttons that much easier. Other than that, everything else on this thing is a charm. I mean, if I have to dig down that deep to find a problem, that tells you that the rest of it is pretty bloody good. That's it from now. Enjoy your own build of this wonderful kit. There are plenty of choices for your aftermarket parts for this. Whether it is photo etch, whether it is painting masks, whether it is lighting, however you want to do it. This is one of those kits that it's almost a shame that if you buy it, you gotta light it. Even if you're not doing anything but put the red atmospheric lighting inside, at least do that. At least light the headlights. The headlights are begging to be lit. They're crying to. They are. If you open up the box, the first thing you hear is "Light me, light me." The HAL light at the front. It's a no-brainer. I just realized what I said. It's a HAL no-brainer. You pull that out and it goes daisy, daisy. I'm rambling now because I'm trying to figure out how to end this video because I don't want this project to go away. So until next week, when we find something else in the stash that's worth throwing together and smacking some paint on, you all be good. Be good to each other and open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I feel much better now. I really do.